The Ministry of Finance and the Public Service presents Let's Talk Finance, a feature exploring the various elements of the economic program.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Finance here on Nationwide 90 FM, talking financial investigations this day again. Chief Technical Director, Financial Investigations Division, Robin Sykes, and a UK-based consultant to the FID, Gary Dickson. They are my guests as they were last week. Gentlemen, from last week we spoke about a training course that investigators are being exposed to. Gary mentioned that, look, it's different from courses that people normally go on, get the knowledge, and go back, sit in their offices, business as usual, no chance to really implement what they've learned. He says that there's a different component to that course. Fine. I want to talk about financial investigations from this perspective, gentlemen. Often financial investigators say, look, follow the money. And I know it's a simplification because it's a very difficult process to follow the money, because the difficulty is knowing where the money starts from and then to follow the line from there. But if it is that's a declaration from the investigator, the criminal knows that in order to catch me, they have to follow the money. Surely there must be an advantage then that the criminal has in perpetrating the fraud, knowing as they do the likely route the investigator will take to intercept their activity. I want to put it to you, Robin, and say, does that not make the job of the financial investigator very much more difficult?
It does. To that, you can add in the mix, sometimes there's complicity.
Yes.
So, of course, a criminal, who, especially a well-booted criminal, would have his professional advisors who will tell him how to structure money and to structure transactions to hide the origin of the money, which is why, again, our framework creates obligations for even on the legal profession to report suspicious transactions.
Yes.
Similar obligations lie on our financial houses, our financial institutions, real estate dealers, gaming operators. So this reporting creates a sort of is supposed to create a preventative barrier. Criminals, of course, try to bypass these issues. Another area where criminals seek to game the system, of course, is to move the money abroad. Mm-hmm. They know that the FID is in Jamaica. How far can it reach abroad? And the framework also accepts that and creates a network of institutions just like the FID across the world, financial intelligence units, where we are also able, by virtue of our membership in that community, it's called the Egmont Group of Financial Intelligence Units, we are able to tap into our colleagues. If you want to put your money in the BVI or in Panama, we're able to tap into that network, touch base with our counterparts, and try and track the money using those professionals in those jurisdictions.
Mm. So yes, Gary, let me hear it.
George, I was just going to maybe give you a practical example of where I've seen Jamaica change in the last 6 years. You have to go back to the Proceeds of Crime Act. It came into being in 2007. In legal terms, that's not long for new legislation to find its feet, to bed in, etc. 6 years ago, a person of Jamaican origin would be arrested in the United States, for example, for drug dealing. They would look to see what happened to the profits from the drug dealing, and they would find property in Jamaica that had been purchased. Back then, people were satisfied in removing that property from the person and ensuring they did it. Now we're looking at how did the person buy the property? Who assisted in buying the property? Are they culpable for money laundering as well? We're casting the net wider. Gone are the days when we're satisfied in just taking away the property. We're looking at the people here in Jamaica who assisted the bad guy launder the proceeds of his criminality. Mm-hmm. So again, we're getting more used to the legislation. And as Robin has pointed out, it's an international organization, the FID. Yeah. It has reach abroad.
Yeah, but as with every critical area of society, Robin and Gary, you have to ask, those who are responsible for carrying out duties in particular departments, such as Robin is in the FID, and you are assisting with Gary in your role as a consultant to the FID, they often say, well, look, there are these legislative tools available, but in order to not even stay ahead of the criminals, but to be in step with the criminals, we would like these other legislative tools to facilitate the plans that we would like to implement. So that's a way to ask you, Robin, does the FID have the necessary legislative support to be in step with those who are hell-bent on bilking the system?
No, absolutely. That's a key question. And we are very cognizant of changes to methodologies. And we are also cognizant of trends abroad in terms of how other jurisdictions deal with these issues. So, for example, we have proposed, and the Ministry of National Security as the ministry in charge of the Proceeds of Crimes Act, we have proposed, and they have accepted, to consider the issue of unexplained wealth orders, which is a topical issue, has been introduced in the UK and has been in effect in Australia, where the authorities are able to question on the basis of what you own and on the basis of what you allegedly earn, you come and explain the difference. Come and explain the difference. And it involves possibly reversals of burdens of proof.
Yes.
And these are some of the tools that we look at in terms of trying to keep ahead or keep abreast with the criminals. We have to also ensure that we use the tools that we have, because sometimes you have tools on the books, we don't use them. So our pecuniary penalty orders, for example, confiscating after someone has been convicted. We have to keep pressing the courts. We have gotten 2 fairly good judgments out of the courts on it, but we have to get these practices mainstream. So if you're convicted of certain offenses, we want the judges to be assessing what's the benefit that this person got, and therefore making an order against the person. You got this benefit, you need to pay it. And then this, in our view, will really mean that we really are truly implementing the statute to the fullest extent.
I think I would like to add, George, in relation to pecuniary penalty orders, it's important to know it shouldn't matter whether the person has the wherewithal to pay at that point.
Yes.
They benefited from their crime. They may have spent the proceeds of their crime, but they still owe to pay back. So the order should be granted and they pay it back either as they go incrementally, or if they manage to obtain any wealth going forward, that is taken into consideration. But just because you've spent the proceeds of your criminality shouldn't preclude us from trying to recover the benefit of that crime.
It's funny we're talking about financial investigations at this point. I read an article this week listing the number of millionaires by countries in the world. The US has 8.9 million. I think New York alone has over 2 million. China has 1.9 million millionaires, and these were dollar millionaires, to be clear. The UK has 900,000. France has 900,000 as well, and I see these huge numbers, so many millionaires right around. You spoke about unexplained wealth, Robin. The publication didn't list how many millionaires are in Jamaica, but is there some facilitation within how the law is set up and how the structures are built to support the work of the FID for individuals who suddenly are opulent almost overnight for an investigation or, investigation, probe, same thing, a probe to be initiated to see where this enormous wealth has suddenly come from?
Well, I mean, we're a small island with a relatively small amount of people there, and sometimes we think that things are much more sophisticated than they really are.
Yes.
And I would tell you that a number of cases, major cases, have really been launched because someone has said, you know, this person is a civil servant, mid-level, but this is what he's driving, or this is where he lives.
Yes.
And we have
or she.
Yeah, or she,
Yeah,
certainly.
gender balance.
Certainly. And this has been the launching pad for a number of investigations, and investigations that have been put before the court. So we don't need any, I don't think we need any, sophisticated screening.
Yes.
We just really need to be conscious and to have people to understand that the authorities are looking and taking action where they believe that, these proceeds have their genesis in crime.
And I would like to echo that, George. I think we should do more of that, is explore the origins of people's wealth. The court system is there for the checks and balances. We have to convince a judge to give us orders to look in someone's bank account. But it shouldn't preclude us from asking the question in the first place, as you said, overnight wealth. Where has it come from? We can start to look at that, and if we're required to go deeper, we can then approach the courts for orders. But you're right, there are a number of people in Jamaica who acquire great wealth very quickly. If we're committed to investigating financial crime, surely it's an onus on us to look at the origin of those funds, and it's something we do regularly.
Yeah, I guess the final question, Mr. CTD, is to ask you, at this stage, based on the size of your office, the skill quotient of your investigators, the capacity of the rest of your staff, the quality assistance given by people like Gary, who's winning? Are you at the FID beginning to come to terms with those who would perpetrate massive fraud? Or are they still comfortably ahead of you, riding a horse while you're riding a donkey? Is that the case?
I think it's a more subtle distinction than that. What I would say is that I think I always try and rationalize it as a quality over quantity problem. We are showing that we have the expertise. We're getting the court judgments on the cases. We're building the jurisprudence. As to whether we're only scraping the top of the surface with the cases, I could not argue that perhaps what we're dealing with is just the tip of the iceberg. We would certainly love more resources. It would be great if we had more lawyers and more investigators to put these cases in the courts. But again, we go back to the training. What we're expecting now is that you have persons widespread within the JCF that, you have a drug bust in Westmoreland. You have somebody out in Westmoreland who is acquainted with and familiar with financial investigations. They can always come to us for assistance, but
Yes.
we need to have that person out in Westmoreland on the ground. That get a practical example. You're going to do a raid on a store or a business place. Whereas you're going to seize the things that are contraband. Is anybody thinking about seizing the books of accounts and the records and the receipts and the invoices that all add up to what the person really made from his criminal activity?
Yes.
So that is a real reason behind our training and what we're trying to achieve.
I think, again, George, I would echo that. The FID has a small number of investigators. Historically, we've looked at all financial crime across the island. We can't continue to do that. The JCF have 8,500 officers. There are competing resource issues, I get that. But if we can put people across the island who can apply the Proceeds of Crime Act to everyday acquisitive crime, that will create the right climate where we're starting to get on top of the criminality, and that is taking place in Jamaica, I think.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, that's all the time we have. Robin Sykes, Gary Dickson. Thank you very much, gentlemen. That's it for Let's Talk Finance this week. We'll be back with another interesting episode next week.
That was Let's Talk Finance, brought to you by the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service.